Mr. Jokujo.
Hello my people, how are you guys doing? So today I'll be giving you guys 15 tips and tricks on how to play one of the best shield legends in the game, Newcastle. Now before we really get into it, I just want to say that in this current aggressive meta, Newcastle is the most difficult legend to play right now, especially with the new EVA armor and the rank changes which forces player to be even more aggressive. But that doesn't mean he isn't viable. Compared to previous metas like Bangalore Digi, Catalyst and Horizon that are currently dying out, this is the best meta for Newcastle to do really well against, with Bloodhound, Conduit, Caustic and Bangalore with the Digi nerf being dominant right now. If teams gave him a chance, I think Newcastle could work. But I do understand why teams still stay away from the legend. It's because Newcastle abilities are very team dependent and very defensive. So playing passive is when you'll see Newcastle do a lot more work, which might not be favorable in most situations, especially in rank where kills matter so much now. To really make aggressive plays with Newcastle, you have to either have amazing mechanical skills, amazing game sense, or have a pre-made squad with amazing chemistry. Having any of these will always open an opportunity for you to make crazy plays. These are also the reason why casual players don't play Newcastle. It's like, why would I play a legend to babysit my random trash teammates when I can play a legend that could get me easy kills and absolutely dominate fights with their abilities while having fun doing it? It's really tough out here until Respawn finally tweaks Newcastle abilities to be better at being aggressive. Now I'm not saying Newcastle is a bad legend entirely, because being able to set up temporary shields and rest teammates while moving to or behind cover can be very useful in so many close situations to the point where it might seem really OP. What I'm trying to say is that competitively, Newcastle can work if teams gave him a chance. And for casuals playing Newcastle, I believe you can develop a lot more game sense because of how challenging it can be to play this legend. But if you just want to play a legend that you'll actually have fun playing with, then it's understandable why you wouldn't want to play Newcastle. But anyways, for Newcastle enjoyers or players that are interested in playing Newcastle, now I'll be giving you tips and tricks on how you can fight more confidently with Newcastle. So the first tip and trick is to always collect or hunt for gold knockdown shields. Now at this point, everyone is supposed to know that Newcastle is the only legend in the game that utilizes the power of the knockdown shield as part of their ability. So make sure you always give your Newcastle teammate the better knockdown shield. You never know how much it might just prove useful, but if it's a gold knock and you have a lifeline on your team, she should get it. If not, it should be Newcastle. In my opinion, lifeline just overall better at Rezing. Being able to res your two teammates while still fighting is absolutely insane to me. Of course, there will be situations where one might be better than the other, but I believe in the majority, lifeline is better. Now on the screen, I'll be putting locations that have the highest probability of a gold knock being there. Locations that have explosive holes, vaults, or looting will also be shown as well. As I said in one of my previous videos, I do not know every secret location gold loot spawn at, so if any of you geniuses could enlighten my darkness in the comment section, you would not only be helping me, but you'll also be helping other Newcastle enjoyers do their job. So the second tip and trick is to always place your tactical before resing. Now this is a technique every Newcastle should be doing. Sometimes I can understand that the heat of battle will throw off your focus from doing something as simple as this, but this is something you always have to remember to do, especially if you still have a white or blue knockdown shield, which can easily get team spread. You also have to remember that you can easily get griefed from the back and the sides of the passive shield. It's not that protective as you think, so it's like mandatory to always be using them together, especially when you're out in the open where enemy teams still have line of sight on you to down your teammate again. And if your tactical is on cooldown, then you have to use your own judgment of your surrounding to figure out whether it's safe to stick the res or not. There's really no cheat around this. I also want to add here that Newcastle does not res faster than the normal res. The only difference is that he moves while protecting with a shield. So there will be situations where it's actually faster if your teammates stint the res. Just make sure you're protecting them as they do so. Now the third tip and trick is that you can use your ultimate twice when hitting gravity cannons. This trick is very situational because it must include a gravity cannon. I'm very surprised they haven't patched this since season 13, and I really hope I'm not going to be the reason why it gets patched this season. Now the reason why this happens, which is kind of obvious, is that they did not add any limit indicators when looking down, even though it has a limit. So hitting gravity cannons that gives you big altitudes can easily break the limit, which rewards you with a second jump. I can see this coming in clutch for some situations. So the fourth tip and trick is that Newcastle's ultimate can destroy Wraith and Ash portals. Now I know this is a bit of a weird trick to make the best use of, but I can see this being used to stop teams trying to rotate or to make cheeky plays. Also, I don't know if the portal is destroyed Will it kill the enemies that are currently in it, or will the enemies just stop moving after it disappears? I don't know. I haven't tested this enough yet, so it's up to you guys to experiment and hopefully make more use of this. Now the fifth tip and trick is, what is the best loadout for a Newcastle? The first thing we need to take into account is his big hitbox. Newcastle is an easy legend to shoot at. And the second thing is that peek shooting is a technique Newcastle can abuse wherever he wants. It's even more dangerous up close. So playing loadouts that absolutely dominate close range and long range loadouts, which doesn't require you to show much presence but still output a lot of damage, should always be your go-to. So loadouts like shotguns and marksman weapons, or shotguns and sniper rifle weapons, is your ideal loadout. With these, you don't have to be up close to put damage on your enemies or assist your teammates. And when that time comes, which requires you to fight close range, you have the shotgun. Of course, meta guns like the Wingman, Nemesis, Prowler, and Hemlock can also be played as well. Now, this is where being mechanically skilled comes in, because I've seen players one-clip enemies across the map using the Flatline, Havoc, R301, and the Vaults. So if you're able to do that, then these guns paired with the shotguns are very viable as well. Also, another thing to note is that when switching between guns, some guns switch faster than others, which can play a very vital role in quickly finishing enemies. So for me, this is where Prowler comes in as a secondary substitute for shotguns when fighting close range, because it switches faster than shotguns and it absolutely beams at close range, especially if you have a gold or purple heavy mag on it. So at the end of the day, with all these gun choices, you still have to test them out and make the decision yourself. My personal go-to is Nemesis shotgun or 30-30 shotgun, and very rarely I would substitute my shotgun for a Prowler. Now the sixth tip and trick is to set easier keybinds to remove your ultimate walls. So in order to do this, for the ones that don't know how, you go into your settings and head to the mouse and keyboard tab. I'm sorry controller players, I don't know what to tell you guys, but I'm sure you guys are supposed to have an input to remove castle walls as well. So now you want to scroll through your keybinds and look for character utility action button. Here you want to set an easier keybind. My keybind is set to the side button on my mouse. So after you guys finish doing that, of course you want to practice a bit with it until you finally get accustomed to easily removing your castle walls. You now no longer have to get griefed by it just because you placed it bad. You can now run right through it. This can also be used to surprise your enemies, because I'm 90% sure a lot of players are not going to expect a PK shot coming through a disappearing castle wall. And lastly, you can use it to remove walls that have been maggie drilled. This is a technique I've been using a lot, so I highly recommend you guys do this more. Now the seventh tip and trick is that you always want to flush or place your castle wall close to indestructible cover. Try your best to make your shield an extension of another cover. The reason why I say this is because Newcastle ultimate walls are destructible, so setting it up out in the open with no indestructible cover is literally asking to be focused and killed right now. Newcastle is not Hancock, so I don't want you guys to be playing sketchy open spots just because you have a Newcastle on your team. Please don't think like that. I want you guys to always play the best spot possible, regardless of whether you have a Newcastle on your team or not. But if you do, then you should utilize the castle wall strategically with whatever indestructible cover you have to block as many angles as possible. Now the eighth tip and trick is, what are the best Newcastle perks to use? I know most of you guys already know this, but this is a guide video. I had to add this as well. So I'm going to tell you guys 2 Newcastle perk setup you can use to absolutely dominate. The first setup is Swift Shield, that increases mobile shield speed to weapon sprint speed, and Miracle Worker, which grants every teammate you res with health regen up to 75 HP. This perk setup should always be your go-to. Now, there's also another perk setup I can see being a lot more useful in ALGS, which is Swift Shield and Stronghold, which gives 250 extra castle wall HP and extends the energized barrier by 2 minutes. The problem with this perk setup though is that I'd prefer if you firstly found a gold knockdown shield, so you can make the most out of Newcastle's res ability. The reason why I recommend this perk setup more for ALGS is because most teams in ALGS are always quickly looting and rotating to zone to hold the spot, so I can easily see the Stronghold perk coming in clutch to assist with extra cover in case the team shows up late and is forced to play in a bad spot. Just an extra note in case anyone is wondering, Gold Knot does not stack with the Miracle Worker perk. The perk is basically useless when you have a Gold Knot. The 9th tip and trick is Newcastle's tactical shield places faster when you crouch. Now, this is a technique I've been always doing without actually knowing the slight benefits. But for the few that don't know, then there you go. A simple crouch will make your tactical place slightly faster. As you guys can see on the right, the drone opens up a lot faster than the one on the left. Now, I know the difference between crouching and not crouching isn't all that great, but I truly believe it can still prove useful. The 10th tip and trick is that you can block Caustic Gas, Horizon's Black Hole, Conduit's Ultimate, and Mad Magus Ball with your tactical shield. Now, this is something I forget sometimes because I know how easily it is for enemies to capitalize on those abilities if I get caught in it. So sometimes I just run away, which probably was the right call most of the times. Now, even though you can block these abilities, it's not like you can run right through them with your tactical shield, for it only blocks one direction. So I can see this being used as a temporary protection to safely disengage from these abilities, or it can buy you some time to set up a play. I really hope you guys remember this better than I do so you can clutch up your fights. The 11th tip and trick is don't use your ultimate to engage fights. Now, I know Newcastle's ultimate is a cool movement ability which can be used successfully in many ways to make crazy plays, but I don't want you guys to get carried away too much until you guys fully understand the 3 main priorities of his ultimate, which is using it for setting up plays that will benefit your team, disengaging when shit hits the fan, and protecting your team when it's difficult to find cover. So using it recklessly just to get closer to an enemy, or using it to aggressively solo chal to a point where your teammates have no LOS on you is not what you want to do. The last thing you want is the enemy team using your own ultimate shield against your team. And trust me, it doesn't feel good. Now, I'm not saying playing selfishly doesn't have its benefits. It's just that I don't want you to make a play like that, then while you're on cooldown, another situation instantly arises which could use that ability to benefit the entire team. So I believe these plays should all be done in pubs and in situations where protecting your teammates is futile. But other than that, don't play selfishly, play selflessly. So every time before you use your ultimate shield, you have to think about how much will this play benefit my team. The 12th tip and trick is how to fight behind your tactical shield. Now, this is where your loadout matters the most. Having one-hitters like shotguns, sniper rifle, and marksman weapons pair so well when fighting behind your tactical. Just being able to peek for a brief moment to put big damage on your enemies is such a good thing. But when it comes to any other gun like ARs or SMGs, where you have to track your enemies, you have to be very careful of strafing too close to your tactical, where you'll get no regs because your line of fire is being blocked by the shield. So if you're fighting one enemy, you have to really commit to the 1v1, then get back behind your tactical shield for safety. In this situation, I love to think of my tactical as a point of safety I can always return to. But of course, if you're using a one-hitter, you can just peek shoot. So now let's say it's more than one enemy. You don't want to commit through the front, you want to commit from the side, while trying to block the line of sight of one enemy to shoot the other. But this still heavily relies on the position of the enemies, how mechanically skilled you are, and how great your game sense is. Sadly, Newcastle Tactical is one of the worst in the game to 1v3 teams, so most of the work still relies on your individual skill as a player without abilities. Also, what I said in the previous tip and in this current tip applies for both tactical and the ultimate shield. Now, I know it might sound a bit confusing right now, but I promise you it's not that hard to get. The tactical shield and the ultimate shield are used in a lot of similar ways. I might be bad at explaining stuff, but if you do follow this channel, I always upload gameplays with crazy Newcastle plays you can learn a lot easier from. And I also upload 1v3s on my Twitter. So if you're interested in that, I would greatly appreciate it if you give me a follow. The 13th tip and trick is that you can reinforce doors temporarily with the tactical shield. Now, I haven't seen any Newcastle players doing this, which is a bit of a shame. So in order to do this technique, you can't directly throw your tactical at the door. You have to throw it away from the door at a certain distance to completely cover the door. I know it is kind of difficult to perfectly get correct every time, but with practice, eventually you will. Door playing Apex Legends have always been a thing. That's why I truly believe once you get this right, it can be a lot more useful than you think. The 14th tip and trick is that you can blow doors out with your ult while blocking the door. Now maybe some of you Newcastle enjoyers already know this, and if you didn't know, then I hope you find this useful. Now in order to do this technique, it sadly took me a long time to figure out. You need to ult the opposite way from the door, then turn your focus back to the door to blow it out. Then you can easily just remove the walls to walk in. So if there's someone blocking this door while you're sitting on the other side, you can do this technique to knock them back, which instantly gives you the upper hand to put damage on them first. No more standing away from the door in animation pose, risking yourself getting one clipped by the enemy that's playing the door. The 15th last tip and trick, my brothers and sisters, is don't be afraid to take wide angles on teams. The distance you can jump back to your teammates is insane, and it's something I haven't seen being put to use enough. Holding multiple angles on an enemy team have always been a technique to wear them down to create an opening. The only disadvantage about this is that as Newcastle, you have to get to that advantageous position on foot because you have to save your ult to get back to your teammates. It's not like your path that can grapple in and grapple out. So as always, it's very situational. There's also another way where you can ult to an angle to wear a team down, but you have to make sure you're within your teammates' line of sight and not too far away from them. So if things go left, your teammates can still protect you. But to pull this off properly, you need a pre-made team that understands that kind of play, because doing that without one might be the biggest throw ever or the greatest play known to man. You just never know when you're playing with randoms. One left. Jump his ass. Right work. Woo! GG. Okay, so that is the end of the video. I really hope most of you guys found this very useful. If you're not a Newcastle enjoyer, take this as a sign to play Newcastle more. But anyways, please remember to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you legends in the next one. Mr. Jokujo.